You rowdy bunch of who knows what's. Good morning, folks on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for that. If you can, those of you at home can use the chat feed in either platform that you're on to let us know that you're here, and there'll be opportunity for you to share your prayer with us as well using that. And you can also use it as a way to say hello to each other. And then for those of you in the room that may be new to us, my name is Jeffrey McNutt. I'm the community manager here at Albuquerque Center for Spiritual Living. And I just thought I would take a minute and do a little bit of orientation to what your experience is going to be today. We are led by our wonderful Reverend Amani Malaika, and you'll hear a wonderful talk from her coming up in a little bit. And we've also had a bunch of folks putting this together today, and I wanted to just acknowledge Jordana Thompson and Emil Crater, who do our sound and video, and the lovely Joylyn Hertz, who does just about everything that could ever be asked for behind the scenes of making sure that things are ready to go. And our wonderful altar that you see behind us was put together by Dino DeLeba. And we also do a thing that we call High Watch. And really all that is we have a group of people that are called practitioners. And that word is often foreign to people. And what a practitioner is here we are at a Center for Spiritual Living, and we're interested in spiritual living. I'm getting some feedback, Emil. And what a practitioner is somebody who's gone through a course of study to deepen their understanding of how it all works, and so that they can hold space for themselves and in turn hold space for you as you figure out your spiritual life. And so we have a bunch of people that are enrolled in doing that. And Mary and Dean are in the back, and they're sitting and holding this whole day just in prayer, so that they know that everything that happens here is a beautiful expression of who we all are collectively. I know that this exact configuration of people has never happened before in the history of mankind. And every week that we get to do this, that's kind of the thing that really I hold on to, that what a amazing thing that all of the different pathways that have led us all to be here. And so that's what we're up to, is we're holding space for each other, and we're getting to know each other, and we're creating, and the theme of our day today is community on purpose. We're creating community on purpose by showing up just as who we are for each other. So sit back and relax and and take a deep breath. And I'm going to take us into the day with a little, it's funny, oftentimes also in this whole series we've been doing about crafting community, we approach it as if it's never been done before, like we're up to something new. This little performance piece I'm going to do to start out with was done in the year 1250 something by one of my favorites, Rumi. And you might know the first line, but the reason I'm doing it is because I'm going a little deeper into it, because there's some beauty behind the line that everyone knows. So, all right. Can we get more house sound, Emil? Yeah. Out, beyond all notions of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, I am forgetting my lines. Sorry. Knew that was going to happen. The world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other makes no sense. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Do not go back to sleep. You must learn to ask for what you really want. You must learn to ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are coming and going across the doorsill between these two worlds. The door is round and open. Do not go back to sleep. And for me, that is the essence of community, being awake to possibilities, being open, coming just as you are into community. So that's what we're up to today. And we're excited because you're going to see the culmination of weeks of fun and hijinks that we've been up to, taking everybody's picture and recording little snippets of video and taking pictures of people by the wall with the wings and standing around microphones and singing. There was a method to that madness, and that's going to come home to you today, and we hope you enjoyed that. So maybe get yourself anchored, and I will pray us into a service today. And as I feel my breath filling my lungs and my exhale, I recognize that it is the breath of spirit that flows through me. I would not be here if it weren't for the majesty and power and presence of something larger than who I am. And just that inkling of knowing that makes me realize that the person to my right and to my left is equally a demonstration of that awesome mystery. So as I feel my connection to those around me, I know that each one of us is here on purpose. Each one of us is a beautiful individual tile in a larger mosaic that I call the face of God.
Good morning. My name is Joy Lynn Hertz, and I am a licensed spiritual practitioner here at the center. I'm deeply grateful to spend this time with you today. Our sacred reading this morning is from Mark Nepo's book, The Way Under the Way, The Place of True Meaning. The name of the poem is Accepting This. Yes, it is true, I confess. I have thought great thoughts, and sung great songs, all of it rehearsal for the majesty of being held. The dream is awakened when thinking, I love you, and life begins when saying, I love you. And joy moves like blood when embracing others with love. My efforts now turn from trying to I can find it, causes and plans and things to strive for. I have discovered everything I could need or ask for. It's right here in flawed abundance. We cannot eliminate hunger, but we can feed each other. We cannot eliminate loneliness, but we can hold each other. We cannot eliminate pain, but we can live a life of compassion. Ultimately, we are small living things awakened in the stream, not gods who carve out rivers. Like human fish, we're asked to experience meaning in the life that moves through the gill of our own heart. There is nothing to do and nowhere to go. Accepting this, we can do everything and go anywhere.
Thank you. Whoa, sorry. Thank you, Joylyn. Good morning. For anyone that doesn't know me, I am practitioner Clarissa Crow, and I'm super excited that we're closing up this beautiful series and just celebrating being in community together. My heart is so full of gratitude for each and every one of you, even the few that I may have not met yet. So I thought maybe we'd do something a little different this morning with the candles. And let's all come up and just light a candle for something that we are grateful for in spiritual community, or someone in our community that we're grateful for. Any gratitude. And folks online, please just type in what you're grateful for in your spiritual community. So you guys can come on up and feel free to come up to the mic and speak your gratitudes after you light your candle.
And if you're online, you may place a candle in the comments or your prayer request in the comments. A prayer request for my father, Curtis, who is recovering.
My name is Maddie. I'm super grateful for yesterday. I don't know if any of you guys were here yesterday, but it was amazing. We got together with our community, ABQ-CSL, and our Manara community, Muslim community that we share this space. And we had this really moving, beautiful coming together of ideas and visioning. And I'm so grateful for that time because I don't know, I was like on cloud nine afterwards. Me and Amani were goofing over it, like just so excited about how two very different groups could come together for the same goal. And wouldn't it be nice if the whole world could do that too? And we do it on the micro level, it just bleeds out. So I'm grateful for that.
Amen, amen. Thank you, Maddie.
That's a hard gratitude to follow. I'm grateful for the team that brings this all together and for all of you being here in the room to share this community.
Thank you, Frank.
A prayer request for our Prac 1 students who are going into week 27 of 30. a prayer request for Janine.
I'm grateful that Joyce is here with us today. Yay, Joyce. We have Dominique, grateful for friends and family that hold me up when I'm down. Also, for you guys, this is my first time, and she's feeling all the love and spirit with us. Welcome, Dominique. So glad you're with us. Thank you.
And a warm welcome and deep gratitude to Emmanuel and Grace, who are our candle lighters this morning. And so, we know that we are called here by divine appointment. We know that each one of us was called here to sit in the exact seat that we are in and the exact place at home that we have chosen. I know that every single prayer, spoken and unspoken, is heard, and it is already in the mind of God, for that is who we are. I do a deep prayer request for our community and our wonderful adventure as we move forward in the knowing that everything is unfolding in divine perfection. And as I know this to be the truth, I just say thank you. Thank you for the gift of being together. Thank you for the gift of holding each other's minds and hearts. And with that, please join me in anchoring these prayers by saying, and so it is.
And so it is. And now I'm going to pass the standing mic off to Grace and Emmanuel to share a little bit with us about what this community means to you.
Okay, so yesterday, the community meeting we had with Minara was really enlightening, to say the least. There was one point that really struck me as something everybody needs to meditate on and think on, because we're coming out of a couple generations where things were really ugly and people are still carrying that over into today. I mean, we know segregation from the 50s and the 60s, but it's still carried for so long. And I come from a family of people that are racist, and it was like an unfolding of a flower to see all the beautiful aspects of stamping out racism and stamping out inequality and judgment and fear and hate, and doing it in the way a higher consciousness would allow us to do it. And the hardest part for me is having the courage to get up here and say these things, because it's ugly. It's ugly what the past has still wrought on our hearts and our minds. But coming together with another community that's different than us, but the same as us, was just such a beautiful thing. And seeing that all the culmination of ideas that we could all bring together, and how we're not so different after all, it was a blessing.
I guess I would just add that to me, community is people that you can share your bad times with and then celebrate your good times with too. 3 years ago, my wife and children left. They're 1,000 miles away. And that chapter closed the 18th. We're finally divorced. But I've had Grace here with me for the last 2 years, and that's been wonderful. And I love that I can share that with all of you.
I am so excited about today. And I'm going to move this just a bit, and Emil, tell me if this is still in the shot for folks later. This way? Thank you. So we are wrapping up our community series, our Crafting Beloved community series. And along the way, some really beautiful things have unfolded, which is why I had asked Grace and Emmanuel to share with us. And I will ask Beloveds online, for those of you that have been participating for the last couple of months in this series, please share your thoughts, your experiences. Even if you're new to us, we want to know what community means to you. Because what I know we've learned along the way on purpose with our relationships and get really intentional about how we are with one another and what we want to do in the world as a result of our connections and relationships. This is how we can know ourselves as love in action, which is our mission here. And I am just, for me, yesterday, as we came together with about 40 folks, but from the Manara Muslim Community Center and our community, it was answered prayer for me. But I want to talk about this idea that we've been in the last couple of weeks is we've been talking about wholeness, which is a spiritual principle many of us understand as when we understand our totality as divine beings. We know ourselves to be whole. But wholeness is synonymous with integrity. And so we've been talking about being in integrity is being in wholeness. And we've looked at a couple of ways that we can be in integrity, that we can be in wholeness, which is being in the flow of energy, right? Getting really clear about what's interrupting or disrupting our flow. We've talked about being in congruence, which is being living our lives from the inside out. From the truth of who we are is how we are moving in the world. And the last aspect of this wholeness is about being on purpose. When you gather up that flow of energy, when you understand the truth of who you are and you ground yourself in that centered place, you allow all of that truth, all of that passion and peace and joy and unique authenticity that you are, that is now what you get intentional about. You get really intentional about being that. You get really intentional about putting yourself out into the world on purpose. And all of those pieces of integrity and wholeness is true for us individually, and it's true for us collectively. As a community, we get to be on purpose. As a group of humans who happen to come together around a philosophy, around a faith tradition, around shared values based in love, which is what happened yesterday. We get to be really on purpose collectively. And this is a demonstration of our wholeness, a demonstration of our divine nature. And one of the ways that unexpectedly unfolded for me this past weekend is I had an opportunity to sit down with a couple of community members, and they gifted me with a really beautiful journal. And one of the things I believe that happens in community is we become reflections for one another. Right? We see ourselves in one another. And in the journal, they wrote me a little note and it was beautiful, but they quoted me back to me. You know how that happens sometimes? They tell you something you said back to you. And they reminded me of a blessing and a prayer I wrote back in 2018. May I walk eyes wide open in love, centered in peace, stepping with grace. And I thought, ooh, I needed to be reminded of that. Thank you, Martha and Cliff, for the journal and for the reminder. May I walk eyes wide open in love, centered in peace, stepping with grace. That is one of the ways I had chosen in my life to be really on purpose. On purpose with how I chose to show up in the world. knowing that that love and that peace and that grace was within me, and that I could take that with me out into the world. From our book, 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. We are whole or in integrity, not just when energy is flowing or when we are congruent, but also when we are on purpose. Integrity is knowing what we are up to in the world and being in complete devotion to it. I love the word devotion. I get to think about what is it that I'm actually devoting myself to. Because when I'm really clear about my wholeness, when I'm really clear about my inner life and my inner truth, and allow myself to be that out in the world, I get to devote myself to that. And then I decided I needed to look up the definition of devotion, which is love, loyalty, or enthusiasm. And do you know the Greek root for enthusiasm is entheos, which means to be filled with God. This is the truth of who you are. This is the truth of who you are. You are filled with God. And what happens when we enthusiastically allow ourselves to move in the world knowing this truth, being this truth, and devoting ourselves to that? This is about being on purpose with our wholeness. Purpose is a verb, means to propose and aim to oneself. So when I propose and aim at the truth of myself, and I devote myself to that aim, I am on purpose. You are on purpose. When you decide, I am a life of the one. I've been put on this planet on purpose. I am here by divine appointment. There has been no accident. God does not make mistakes. And when I aim for my true self and decide to devote myself to that, what begins to happen in our communities, in our relationships? So I let a couple people know, Grace and Emmanuel, that I was going to be asking people to come up and share on the microphone, because what I know about Beloved Community is it has very little to do with me, and it has everything to do with y'all. So one of the people I picked on was Jan Nolan, who is a practitioner in our community, who I wanted to have her come up and share with us what happens when we lose our aim, when we forget the truth of who we are and the absolute profound power to be reminders for one another, much like Cliff and Martha were for me. Come on up.
Thank you. Reverend Amani reminded me earlier that I have community for support. I have not been well this past month. And as a practitioner, I've been trained to ask for prayer, to give prayer, to receive prayer, and I haven't done that. I've retreated, I've separated. I don't like being vulnerable. I've lost my way. Not being well, it's very hard. I'm used to showing up a certain way. I want to look a certain way, be present. I'm not that present to myself, let alone all of you. But I look at these faces, and I know you're my community. I've been part of this community for many, many years. And it's interesting, I'm not the only one, lost my purpose. I've questioned everything. Who am I? What am I doing here? Am I part of this community? But I'm here to share this just so you all can feel that comradeship, that you're not alone, we're not alone. We all go through phases where we're vulnerable and weakened. And all it takes is just a little glimmer of showing up and maybe recognizing in someone else that they're there and that we're here. So just know that we all are one and we share similar pain, discomfort, vulnerabilities, but we're all united in love. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Takes courage. It takes courage to come up here and stand in front of y'all and say, I'm one of you, and this is what I'm going through, and I need you. One of the words that came up over and over again yesterday as we visioned and prayed together was courage. The courage to be uncomfortable, the courage to be vulnerable, the courage to say hard things. Thank you, grace. This is part of that enthusiasm, that entheos, that when we connect ourselves to our inward sanctuary, to that inner knowing, to that peace and that intellect and that calm that lives within each one of us, when we connect to that, we are also powered by it, giving us the courage and the bravery to show up in community and in our relationships. That became clear to me yesterday as my prayers were being answered was maybe I hadn't prayed out loud quite enough. And I realized if it isn't obvious, the point of us being in community is to be a community of practice. The point of us gathering together virtually online is to be a community of practice so that we can take these principles and these ideas and our faith in whatever that faith is and walk it together. I'm going to ask Paul Cox to come up for a moment. Because Paul came in today and I haven't seen him in a really long time. So when I want y'all online to be able to see him if you haven't seen him in a long time. But no idea what it meant. BB the BB. You want to tell us what that means?
It means to walk the walk. And I actually got to experience that pretty strongly this weekend. I'm probably going to cry. I recently had COVID, and coming back out of it, I had a real bad depression stage. And I knew I needed help. Didn't know who to reach out to. And I had a missed call on my phone. And I look at it and it's like, it says, Jeff McNutt. And so I called him back. It turns out it was a butt dial. He asked how I was doing, and I broke down. I was like, I'm not doing okay. And so I went to his house the next day, and we spent 2 hours just talking, and he helped me break everything down and just really helped me pull out the other side. And the next whole day is that. And you've been at 100%. And I'm so grateful.
BB the BB, y'all. BB the BB, walk the walk. That's why we're in community. As this gives us the opportunity to lovingly and compassionately hold one another accountable to the truth of who we are. And even when we forget the truth of who we are, we get to lovingly come together and say, but I do know the truth of who you are. And let me help you remember. Walk with me when I forget. Which reminds me of, again, the prayer that Cliff and Martha brought back to me. May I walk in love, centered in peace, stepping with grace. And when I forget, you all remind me. When I get lost, I just have to show up and experience the answered prayer. Because your grace becomes my grace again. And my love becomes your love again. And we continue to aim. We continue to be on purpose. And I think sometimes in spiritual community and church and spiritual centers, whatever language works for you, and then I get like my spiritual food. And real talk, sometimes it feels like we just need to come in here and be fed, kind of like babies in a high chair. We just need to get a little spoon feeding because we forget. But then we think we're done. We're like, okay, I did my church thing, did my thing, bye. And we forget that the whole reason we come together isn't just to be fed. It is to be in the practice of our teaching together, to be messy together, to forget and be reminded, to be reflections, to be curious about that person over there who's getting on my nerves, and yet they're the face of God. Okay, that's why we come. That's why we show up online. And it is our honor to do so. It is our privilege to do so. It is the reminder that we are not alone. You are not alone in this. You don't have to walk in the door or hop online and not speak to anybody. Not let us know you're here in the comment feed. This is one of the small ways you get to be reminded that you are not alone. That you exist in a community of connection. That you exist in a community of folks who are trying to just stay on aim too. And that comfort and that care doesn't even have to look how you think it might need to look. It could just happen in the simple ways of showing up or in a butt dial, right? And seeing a comment on the chat feed, that was exactly what you needed to hear today. To see and hear the prayer request that is yours too, and maybe you didn't have the courage yet today to say it out loud, to type it for others to see. This has always been our purpose. Otherwise, we would all be at home on our little cushions meditating by ourselves. But I want to make sure today that I say it out loud. This has never been about me or any other minister, ever. We just happen to talk and like to talk a lot. That's really the only difference. This has always been about the community. This has always been about the humans who have decided to show up and be together. Because I can talk to myself. I do it a lot. And I believe this being on purpose as an aspect of our wholeness needs to be acknowledged, and we get to get really intentional and we get to devote ourselves to it. The aim for our true selves and the aim for community that is gathered around the idea that we are love in action. One of the most beautiful things that came up yesterday was there was such common ground on being love in action between both communities. There was such shared enthusiasm for being of service and wanting to come together and be the good in our local community. It had nothing to do with how we defined God or Allah. It had everything to do with, like, when we come together, we are a powerful force for good. Let's get intentional about that. Let's get on purpose about that. Let's devote ourselves to that. And I don't know about you, but if you know Maddie, who I lovingly refer to as Maddie Maddikins, is the embodiment of enthusiasm. And I would love to have Maddie come up and talk about her experience yesterday in our community of love and action. Maddie Maddikins.
Oh, this is a surprise. I said a little bit when we were lighting candles. I grew up in the Jewish faith, and I felt separate a lot. As a kid, I grew up in a small town in California, and we were the only Jewish kids in my school, except for one girl named Beth Kaplan. I don't know where Beth went, but anyway, we were separate. Everybody else was Christian, and on Fridays, I think every other Friday, we were next to the YWCA, and they would have Christian classes, and all the kids in the whole school would go there except for us three. And us three would sit back and have to do schoolwork while they did something that seemed like it must have been really fun, right? Because they came back pretty enthusiastic and joyful. And I was really resentful that I didn't get to go. I was separate. I was different. One time I asked if I could go, and I think they wanted me to be a Christian, so they said yes. So when I went, I asked a lot of questions because I didn't know about Jesus and angels and the way they talked about it and a lot of different things. And they didn't ask me back. I asked a lot of questions. They didn't ask me back. I wasn't part of that. And so I think part of yesterday, it makes me almost want to cry. I went to the Ramadan Saturdays for several weeks with the Islam community, and they didn't care that I was Jewish or that I was a person that went to ABQCSM. And when I asked them questions, they answered all of them with joy and openness because they wanted to share their beliefs with me. And yesterday was like an even bigger experience of that. It was us sharing our thoughts and beliefs, and it was funny. And what was there, a Taylor Swift table? People named their tables. And there was a Taylor Swift table. And I don't know, our table wasn't that creative in naming our name, but it was just like, gosh, we are one. No matter what we think about God or anything in the universe, we are still one. We absolutely are made from the same thing, and we experience the same things. We just might have different thoughts about it. So, bye, Monty. I didn't know you were going to call me, and I had to cry and everything. What I know is if we will continue to have this coming together of our communities, and as each one of us see that and believe that and know that we're one, even with the person that we don't like what they're saying, and know that they are all the face of God, and all of us go out there and share that, and then you share that with someone else, and they share that, and we can change the world.
Amen, amen.
Let's do that.
Amen, amen. Right? Is she not the picture of Entheos? Thank you, Maddie. Oh, and I love what I'm seeing on the chat feeds. You guys are loving each other up and speaking your gratitudes for one another. This is what it's about. This is what it's about. And when I was thinking about this idea of being community on purpose, and I deeply believe that our time together yesterday with Manara is planted a seed of this, of being community on purpose. And I know without a doubt that something very beautiful is going to rise from the soil of what we planted yesterday. And I know that because I know love. And I know what happens when we get intentional, because I know from my own experience of being really, really devoted to what I know to be true, it is what shows up. Anybody else in your affirmative prayer practices? And you're just like vibing, right? When something is like, oh yeah, this is it. And it has no choice in the law, in the spiritual law of resonance and cause and effect. It has no choice but to show up. And our job, right, is to get juicy with that, is to get devoted to that. And continue to aim back to truth, back to love, back to grace. And I was speaking with one of the Muslim community members yesterday, and we were talking about how sacred text, it doesn't matter what sacred text you read, the reason sacred text, it becomes meaningful and becomes the 1 or 2 or 17 or 47 like me. The reason that we are drawn to sacred text is because it resonates with what we already know to be true. This is what we continue to aim for. This is what we devote ourselves to, is being that resonation of love, being that radio frequency, that radio station, that beacon of light that radiates love. And it has no matter what book you happen to read that inspires you to love. No matter, none at all. Doesn't matter what words you pray with, whether you pray or not. But when we devote ourselves to being the love and allowing that love to move us in right action, and when we do that collectively, holy cow, and theos, enthusiasm, being on purpose. I was thinking about, he doesn't know I'm going to call him up, but Vincent, I'm calling you up. So come make your way. Make your way. Vincent is one of our newer members, and I learned a story from Vincent. He came to learn how to use our AV equipment recently, and he was sharing how he came to know that we existed. And I found out that the first video Vincent found of us was, shall I say, risque? Do you want to tell that story, how you found us, what resonated for you?
Yes, I will tell the story because
Here,
you asked
let me
me
help
to.
you out.
So I used to live down the street, and now I live in the North Valley. And I always wanted to come because I would drive by here when I would come to go to Smith's, and I was thinking, oh, that sounds like a really cool place to go. But I never went. And then during the pandemic, I started watching the videos, and the first video on YouTube I saw was Clarissa in the bathtub. And what encouraged me to come was, it may not be what you think. I thought, these people are nuts. I want to see how crazy they are. Like, at least it'll give me something fun to do during the pandemic, to hang out with a bunch of crazy people. So, and so, I'm here, and not only are you crazy, you're still all maniacs on a mission, but also, I found a group of like-minded people that Spirit was attracting me to, that I didn't even know it. I thought I was here for fun, and Spirit had a whole nother plan for me. So thank you all for welcoming me, and thank you, Imani, for
I'm glad you guys laughed as hard as I did when he shared that with me. Oh, but that is part of how we find our way to one another, and discover that we are resonant in it may be like resonant in like, I just want to come and have fun with y'all. That's reason enough. That's reason enough. But as Vincent said, you may discover along the way, whatever brought you to the video, whatever brought you to the room, there is an opportunity for you to discover your greatest purpose in life, your greatest aim in life, which is that you are divine. That the very power and wonder and love of the Holy Blessed One is living itself through you. And you get to be in community with folks who are discovering that as well, and are devoting themselves to being on purpose about that as well. And that by itself changes the world. That by itself is enough. So a question I want to ask all of you is, what's your purpose? What are you devoted to? I'm going to give you a minute to answer. It's not hypothetical. One of the ways we know what we've devoted ourselves to is how we spend our time, how we spend our thoughts. And having an honest conversation with ourselves about how we're spending our time and our thoughts. And then discerning, am I in alignment with what I say I want to be about? Have I lost my aim? Do you know that the Hebrew translation of sin means to miss the mark? To be off aim? That's it. And if we are not in a regular conversations with ourselves about whether or not we're on target, whether or not we have aligned our aliveness with the truth, whether or not we are devoting ourselves to what really matters, if there's anything that we've been invited to during this pandemic season, this season of what appears to be apocalypse, if there is anything that has risen and as an invitation, is what matters. I think many of us have had to get beautifully, uncomfortably, really clear about what's important, who we want to spend time with. I mean, people are quitting their jobs, like epidemic quitting their jobs, because they're like, yeah, it's not it. I can't give any more time to that. I'm worth more. My life is more valuable than that. Whole bunch of relationships ended. Yeah, it's not on target. But it's not about just the endings. It's about we end and make way for what matters, for what we actually want to devote ourselves to. And I believe that is true for community as well and organizations as well. Things have to fall away so that what matters has room. And anything that is out of alignment with that must crumble. We're seeing it everywhere in our own lives and all around the globe. But the story doesn't end with the crumble. That's a beginning. You know that the definition of apocalypse, the translation of that word just simply means to lift the veil. To see more clearly. Anybody feel like they would like to see more clearly? Right? Could anybody begin to get enthusiastic about seeing more clearly? about being able to call your time and your talent and your treasures back to what matters. That everything unfolding and crumbling and falling apart in your life right now is a blessing. Really? Is an invitation, is a divine invitation to what matters. Life is like, let me get that out of the way for you. Here. It is always moving for good, this thing that I call God. It is always on purpose. And we are always being invited to align ourselves and get on purpose with Spirit. Individually and collectively. And so what I know without a shadow of a doubt is that this community is being invited into deeper alignment, is being invited to greater purpose, clearer purpose. And I don't know about you, but I am all in to accept that invitation. Yes? And one of the ways we get to accept that invitation and be intentional and devotional is to celebrate the beauty that we are. And so I would love if Emil would cue up the premiere of our community effort, our first ABQ-CSL music video, The Face of God, written by Karen Drucker, by you.
You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. Hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. I hold you deep in my heart. You are a part of me. All I see is love. You are the face of God.
In creating community, all these years that I've been here, I am so grateful that this is my family.
I think community is something we all need right now. And this is a warm and welcoming group of people who I don't really know, but I felt home.
Since I started this journey, my life has been transformed beyond my wildest imagination. I am grateful every single day.
You are the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. The precious face of God. You are a part of me. Your precious heart. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. In my You are the face of God.
So good! It's so good! So good. I know, weeping over here. So good. Oh, and I believe, Emil, can you help me out and make sure that's on our YouTube channel this week? Thank you. Wow, right? Wow, what becomes possible when we just simply come together to celebrate one another. This is the part of our time together where I ask you to open up your checkbooks and your phones and your hit donate buttons. I believe we'll see on this screen ways that you can contribute to this incredible mosaic of love that is community. You can text to give, click to give, and to give. And also, for those of you who are in the room, leave cash or check at the baskets behind you. I love you so much. Thank you for being with me today.
So as the director of photography / cameraman / husband of that bathtub video series, I just wanted to assure the community that all bubbles were strategically placed and that no animals were harmed in the making of that series. Another reason to go to YouTube and check out all of our videos that are available there. What struck me during this whole thing was this kind of concept of time. And so I wanted to speak just really briefly about the concept of heroes. Paul spoke very lovingly about my presence in his life, but Paul Cox predates me at this center by a long shot. And in my story of coming here, I was quite broken when I showed up on this doorstep, and unbeknownst to him, it was really Paul and Stephanie. We used to do, like big after service parties in here, and the way that they showed up and the way that they welcomed me and anchored me, they're heroes of mine. And so to complete the cycle and be there in your life, Paul, is a blessing to me because you're one of my heroes. And flashback 3 years ago, Emmanuel spoke about what was going on in his life, and through community, here we are 3 years later, and he's a different person. I had left this community for a while and was pursuing another of my talents as an executive chef, and was really sad in that moment in time. Who was it that showed up at the restaurant to eat a meal with another one of our community members, but Jan Nolan? And at a time where I really needed it, let me know that I meant something, and was really one of the people that was instrumental in me coming back. And then my life has been transformed by showing up and saying yes to the wacky hijinks that goes on here, and my equivalent of herding cats. But I could go on. I look around this room and there are so many heroes of mine sitting right before me that it blows my mind. And hero is a tough word for some people. I know it is probably for Jan, for me to say, you're one of my heroes. What does it really even mean? So I wanted to, before I pray us out, let me just take a moment. And if you're new in this community, or if you just need to take a deeper dive into anything that we do, go to our website, and there's all kinds of different ways to experience what goes on here. Not the least of which is just to fill out the card that lets us know that you're new, so that we can get in conversation with you. In our About Us section, there's a page with all of our practitioners that are active and willing to meet with you and help you to become part of this fabric that we've talked about today. So just check out the website. So I thought I'd take us out with a little reading about heroes, and then I'll move into prayer, closing prayer. And only one other person I wanted to pick on before I read this is, this reading really is the embodiment of the way that I see Cliff Wintrode. And he spoke yesterday at our community session about his willingness to be vulnerable and and to look at his entitlement. And I was blown away by the bravery that took. And every time Cliff speaks, I cry. So Cliff Wintrode, one of my heroes, and he's that reluctant hero too. So I'm glad I got a chance to poke a little bit at him today. Heroes didn't leap tall buildings or stop bullets with an outstretched hand. They didn't wear boots and capes. They bled and they bruised, and their superpowers were as simple as listening or loving. Heroes were ordinary people who knew that even if their own lives were impossibly knotted, they could untangle someone else's. And maybe that one act could lead someone to rescue you right back. So resting in this energy of authentic, true, heartfelt, beloved community, I know that this day has absolutely unfolded in perfection, and that there was something here for every single person in attendance and every single person joining us through the miracle of technology. And furthermore, I know that there's something in this for each and every soul that wasn't here, for that we get to take all of this love and all of this energy out and touch someone else's life. We are love in action, transforming lives, transforming communities. And so in gratitude, I just let that love spill out. And I know that there's nothing left to do but to love. And together we say, and so it is. So let's all join in reading this affirmation that I wrote unknowing that it was going to fit so well today. I am a hero to my community and those I hold dear just by listening and loving. Have a wonderful day. I love you all.